So as you are migrating in, turn to Daniel chapter 2, if you will. That's what we're going to be this morning, Daniel chapter 2. Right about the time frame of 600 BC, we'll be talking about the exactness in just a moment. But first, I want to mention about this gentleman right here. He's not the first of the Babylonian kings. Who is the first? Does anybody know? I don't. Excellent, excellent. I figured Roy would probably be able to fill us in on that. Nebuchadnezzar, if we're saying his name right, who knows, right? But Nebuchadnezzar was the father of Nebuchadnezzar. He's the first of the Babylonian kings. He does lead the revolt against and is victorious in his efforts against the Assyrian Empire. So Babylon has now become the world's superpower. He's the first of the Babylonian kings, but he's not the most powerful, and he's not the most famous for sure. That reservation would belong to Mr. Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar's son. He reigns the longest of the Babylonian kings, 43 years. Pretty good chunk of time. And in our story, we began at what time in the first carrying away of the children of Israel? Okay, I'm not going to fight with you about that because you may be right. But I say 606. He says 1 year different. All right, it may be that. It may be one or it may be even as much as 2 years difference. But generally thought 606. You'll hear quite a bit 605, also BC. Second carrying away took place when? 597 BC, about, not exactly, but about 10 years later. The third one, about 10 years later also, and 586 BC. So we're at the first of these. There are going to be more of these. Judah's not entirely done as a state just yet. She's making her way toward it. She has 2 decades left, roughly. But we're about the year 606 BC. We're studying, of course, in the book of Daniel. And what are our 2 key words? Good. All right. The 2 of you work together well. Symbols. Stories. Yes. Stories and symbols. Why stories? I know there's the obvious there. They're stories. Well, it's not just that they're stories. If you ask me, I'm being a little partial here, but Cindy and I are on the same page, and that's all that matters. That we're talking about arguably like some of the greatest stories you'll find in the Bible, just boom, 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 sandwiched together, separated by quite a few years in a number of instances. There are 12 chapters in the book of Daniel, and there are lots of stories contained in them. Why symbols? Obviously, I know, because they're symbols. But these symbols are associated with prophecies, figurative writing, often being communicated through what 2 things? Visions and dreams, which are basically visions just while you're snoozing, okay? So visions and dreams, the first of which we have to discuss today in chapter 2. I'm very much so looking forward to this. I hope you are as well. So we're picking up in verse 1 of Daniel chapter 2. Now in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, okay, roughly looking at what? 605 or 604-ish BC. In the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. This isn't a servant of the Lord. This is a pagan person having dreams. And there's no question as we get into what this dream is that God appears to be communicating to a heathen or through a heathen. Is that unheard of in Scripture? Does that happen anywhere else? God at least attempting to communicate via dream through a heathen person? It did happen. You're right. Good job. Who wants to be Justin's teammate here? Cindy's already joined the team. Who else wants to be on board? At least one that comes to my mind. How about, okay, sorry. How about Pilate's wife? Yeah? Hey, listen, you don't want to have anything to do with this guy as far as his punishment, harshly treating him. Just be good to this Jesus character. I didn't sleep very well last night. I had dreams about him. Is it theoretically possible that it's just happenstance? Maybe. But I mean, it seems to be pretty obvious that God was trying to communicate something, warning this leader through his wife. God's very kind to do that. He doesn't have to. But even people who seem so destined for failure, he gives opportunities, doesn't he? He wants them to make the right choices. Okay, so this isn't completely unheard of in the paradigm of Scripture. Nebuchadnezzar, a pagan ruler, has dreams, and his spirit was so troubled that his sleep left him. Let's pause for just a moment and go back to chapter 1 and recall what has taken place relative to God's people. Important names here. Chapter 1 of Daniel, verse 3, Then the king instructed Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, to bring some of the children of Israel and some of the king's descendants and some of the nobles, young men, in whom there was no blemish, but good looking, gifted in all wisdom, possessing knowledge, and quick to understand, who had ability to serve in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the language and literature of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed for them a daily provision of the king's delicacies and of the wine which he drank, and 3 years of training for them, so that at the end of the time they might serve before the king. Why in the world would you send nobility and or royalty to college for 3 years when they've already been trained? Remember the difference? They're going to be retrained. It's not that you haven't learned so much. It's just so much of what you've learned about the world and history and the way things should operate, it's not the right way. Every country has their own perspective, don't they? And the Babylonians have their perspective that is definitely different than the country of Judah. All right, so they're going to be retrained. I would love to say be re-educated, and I know there's some of that went on. But another way of looking at it is they're going to be indoctrinated, or some might say re-indoctrinated, into a new way of thinking, so that at the end of the time they might serve before the king. Time out. Everybody look away from your Bibles if you don't mind. You ready? Pop quiz. Who are the 4 people who are brought out here by name, by their real names, as in their birth names? Okay, yeah, you would, right? You would. Oh, it is Hananiah. Getting a little Babylonian in your tongue there. Mishael. And Azariah. Very good. Look at you all. Good teams. Yes, sir.
The question is, I know we're never told, but
that is interesting. Yeah. That is interesting. So for those who might not have heard, Joe's asking, any ideas as to why Daniel speaks of himself by the Hebrew name for himself and by the Chaldean name for Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah? Could it be something just that he hears it so often that way, but wouldn't he hear his own that way also? So I don't know if that's any.
It just seems odd.
Yeah. No, I would agree, Joe. I'm not sure. I don't have a good answer for you. I wish I did. Yeah. It is, yeah. Okay, so speaking of which, what are the Chaldean given names now? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. What's Daniel's name? Okay, very good. Belteshazzar. Isn't that funny, though, that we do know those 3 so much better by, and then Daniel's like, not Belshazzar, that's a king later, but Belteshazzar, which is very similar. That's interesting also, isn't it? Maybe it's because of the way we see it so many times. They are. For as strange as they are, they kind of seem to roll off the tongue, don't they? Yeah, I would agree with you, Roy. I've thought that about them too. Okay, so now we can read verse 6 of Daniel 1 since we've shown our memory here. Verse 6, Daniel 1. Now among those of the sons of Judah were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they're taken captive when Nebuchadnezzar takes over and first strips away some of the citizens, and mainly this is the who's who. I always say that wrong. I think that's right that time. The who's who of Judah. He takes the best and the brightest for himself, confiscates them, brings them over, assimilates them into the Babylonian Empire. And so he's brought them over. He has them. He puts them in a program of 3 years. We find out in chapter 2, verse 1, we're in what year of Nebuchadnezzar? So these guys haven't graduated college yet, right? Okay. They've been brought in to start some service and an apprenticeship, but they're really still learning the ropes. Keep that in mind for what we find here in a little bit. During this time period, Nebuchadnezzar has dreams, and his spirit's so troubled that he can no longer sleep at night. All right, so the king wants to figure out what in the world's going on here. Verse 2. Then the king gave the command to call the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans to tell the king his dream. So they came and stood before the king. 4 groups of people here. What are the difference in these 4? Astrologers, sorcerers, magicians, Chaldeans. Okay, so very good, Justin. I'm like you. I would start in the one that's probably most apparent of the 4. Astrologers, what are they, you said? Good. Okay, those are supposedly the experts of the sky. Now, don't forget, when God made all things, he made the stars, right? The sun and the moon, the major lights of the heavens. I say major, the stars seem to be a little more minor. But he made the lights of the heavens, including the stars, and he said, let them be for what? Stars included. For light upon the earth, and seasons would be another one. So you're going to have your winter solstice, your summer solstice, and all these kinds of things, right? You're going to have your months that you can count, as well as your years that you can count. But also, he said, let them be for what else? Oh, no, I thought your hand, no, it wasn't going up. Signs. Very good. The stars were intended to communicate originally, okay? So, and we know there are a number of times, including with Jesus, right? We have seen his star. God would communicate things through the skies. So these guys are supposed to be the experts who can read the skies to tell you what's going on. Do you think what they're speaking is correct? They're experts of the skies? Probably not. Which might go right along with the sorcerers and the magicians. Who are they? What do they do? Let's say magicians. And think like if it helps any in the New Testament. Simon the sorcerer. Some would call him a magician instead of that. But okay, so we can go ahead and try. Also think about the magicians of Pharaoh. What did they do? Very good. It's like our magicians of today. Paul says they're illusionists. They're very convincing. They're the best at what they do. And we've all seen it before. One of my favorite shows on free TV back in the day was Magic Secrets Revealed, something like that. And The Masked Magician, you guys remember that? It was on Fox. He came on, he was like late 90s or something. And he would perform these magic tricks, cutting a woman in half and putting her back together and all this kind of stuff, making an elephant disappear. And you see it and you're like, all right, I'm flabbergasted. But he would actually explain and show how it's nothing more than trickery, and you're thinking, how did I not see that all along? You had no idea though, right? So that's these guys. It's Simon. When he sees real magic being done, he knows that's not what he's been doing. The magicians in Egypt, they can replicate some of what is going on with Moses and Aaron up to a point, and from that point they stop, and what do they tell Pharaoh? What these guys are doing is the finger of God, meaning human beings can't do what these guys are doing. Okay? So these are the guys, through trickery and deception, make people think, kind of like Simon, oh, they're incredible, they're great, they're so powerful. And really they don't have any power at all. They're just super good at what they do. What do you think the difference is between sorcery and magic? More earthly sorcery, more of a... Okay, all right, so maybe that's like we would think of a medium. Okay, good. Gene? I haven't, but it doesn't surprise me. let me pause and say right here, in part of this discussion, I haven't found a consensus as to what all these four mean, to be honest with you. I do think there are some potential common sense ones, but it might be that there's more behind it than what would meet the eye. Yeah. So what Gina suggested is that she's come across in some of her studies that perhaps these magicians were writing, say again, what it was they were writing? Oh, so like historians, recorders of deeds. I'm trying to think, what's the other one? But no, I got you. Legal documents, maybe even of the present. Yeah, scribes, kind of like scribes. Yeah, no, I got you. Very good. So that could be. Again, there's not a complete consensus on what each one of these means. It may be greater than what we would understand. So here's something else about sorcery we know in the New Testament. It comes from the Greek word pharmakeia. What's that? Pharmaceutical. That's really interesting. And the pharmaceutical industry is most well known for its drugs, which aren't inherently wrong, right? Drugs. But there were drugs at times that sorcerers would use to help with their illusions that they were creating, to help people see things that they couldn't see before. And I think it's involvement in intoxication in part. So, hallucinations, very good. Hallucinogens, yes, absolutely. Okay, so here we go. That's all these. And now we have left, as a final possibility, the Chaldeans. Who are these guys? Very good. It's another word for Babylonians, or on our map, people from the east. People from the east, and Babylonians / Chaldeans especially, are very well known for something. You don't have to answer, but Roy?
Babylonian is evolved into what it was.
Yes, makes a lot of sense. And as John chimed in, is a big melting pot is what's taking place here, and there's some ethnic designations that'll carry over into the new regime.
I'm not talking about an ethnic group in Mesopotamia.
AKK, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, very good. Yeah, so that's exactly right. And also the people of the East are very well known for their wisdom. And it would make sense in this role that these who are considered the wisest are administrators, we would probably say today advisors to the king. All right? So yeah, there are all these breakdowns, there are different ideas as to exactly what each of these means, but one thing's for sure, this is the royal cabinet that's brought in here in verse 2 of Daniel chapter 2 to help solve this problem that has arisen. So the king gives the command to call the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, the Chaldeans to tell the king his dream. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said to them, I have had a dream. So this is like Rapunzel's buddy on Tangled. I had a dream. We all have, but this guy's dream, though, it's unique. He says to them, I have had a dream, and my spirit is anxious to know the dream. Then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic. And do you recall what's unique in verse 4 of chapter 2? Right in the middle of it. It switches from the writing. The writer switches from what language? Hebrew to what language? Aramaic, which is the common language of the Chaldeans. Now, later on, much later on, where are we? 600 years later, during the lifetime of Jesus and his apostles, the common spoken language, historically, of the Middle East is Aramaic, not Hebrew, not Greek, not among God's people, the Jews. Where do you think they picked this up? From the Babylonian captivity. And what Daniel and his buddies and the whole nation was so ingrained in, they stay there for 70 years, and it's so influential on them that 600 years later, they're still talking the same language of the Babylonians. It's not that they don't know the others, it's just that's become their common language. So Daniel switches over. I hate this. Not you, Daniel, but me. It's not you, it's me. But in the middle of a verse, in a sentence, he switches over to another language, and he continues writing in that language until when? Chapter-wise. To the end of chapter 7. Remember that? All right, so let's count this. Basically all of chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 6 chapters. He writes all of chapter 1 in Hebrew. It's one chapter. 2 is basically all Aramaic, so we're not going to count that for Hebrew. He starts again Hebrew in chapter 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 6. So half the book is in Aramaic, half the book is in Hebrew. Why do you think he would switch over and start writing in Hebrew right here? Well, we just read the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic. Sounds like a good place to start. So actually the middle of the verse and the middle of the sentence makes some sense in this place. In Aramaic, the Chaldeans spoke to the king, the wise guys, the advisors. O king, live forever. Well, I bet toward the end of that 43 years, people were starting to question whether that wish was coming true. O king, be careful what you ask for. Live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will give the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, my decision is firm. What does a firm decision mean as a child of a parent? Oh, but, sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, but have you considered that kids try, right? I mean, that's just the way we work with authority figures because we're a little bit selfish and we want our way and we think our way is the best. So he says, you're not going to change my mind by my decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me and its interpretation, you shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made an ash heap. Yes, sir.
I had a question about the wise man.
Yeah. I don't believe it's that he forgot the dream. I think he knows. Yeah.
You think he knows his dream and uses it as a test?
Yes, using it as a test, okay? And if you don't mind, hang on to that thought, okay? Because I actually do want to address that. Very good question. Yeah. Okay. So, if you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you should be cut in pieces and your houses should be made an ash heap. It's not, if you don't tell me what I dreamed, you're going to be looking for new employment. You're going to lose your life. But really, it's not just, you're going to die. I mean, it sounds kind of bad, but you're going to be made into pepperonis. All right? I'm going to cut you in pieces. And then your houses, I'm going to turn into a pizza oven, is what he says. I'm going to make them into an ash heap. I'm going to burn your houses to the ground. This guy seems slightly deranged, doesn't he? A little bit off his rocker. What do you think he means by your houses shall be made an ash heap? Obviously, your physical edifice could be burned to the ground. Any other guesses what he might have in mind here? It may be a threat against the family, which wouldn't be unheard of. Look over in chapter 6. I know we're not there yet, but this is with Daniel in the lion's den and the evil men who conspired against Daniel. Of course, the King Darius loves Daniel and tried his best to save him, didn't recognize the plot, going into all this. Praise God that Daniel is spared. Notice in verse 24 of Daniel 6, and the king gave the command, and they brought those men who had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions. Them, their children, and their wives. And the lions overpowered them, broke all their bones in pieces before they ever came to the bottom of the den. It might be a situation like what we find with Darius and Daniel later on. It's not just these guys that are going to be punished, but their houses being reduced to ashes could be a threat being made against their families as well. Wouldn't surprise me in the least. And it might even be the manner of death being spoken into the threat for their family. Again, it's not unheard of for a house to be burned intentionally with the people inside of it. And so that could be also the way that their families would die. This is a serious matter. The way to escape this, though, is simply, it's not tell me what my dream means. It's read my mind. Okay, now I want to go back to something that you brought up, Roy. Why would he tell somebody to read his mind? Nobody can do that. So why would he demand the impossible of these people? Taking a step back, who do these people claim to be? Okay, sorcerers, magicians, among other things, right? The best of the best, the smartest, the brightest. But also, they claim to be essentially people with prophetic, psychic abilities, all right? Could communicate with people in the afterlife that we can't see, much less hear. They're essentially claiming to be people to know things that nobody else knows. And I believe in particular, people in part who can read others' minds. And so I believe this is a test. And maybe he's picked up on the past thinking, I don't really know that you're doing what you're saying you're doing. I think Nebuchadnezzar is a super smart guy. And we're going to see some real positivity even that the God of heaven perceives in this ruthless ruler of God's people. Yes?
Have you ever done laundry at your house and found a quick
Yeah, and in the process erase memory of you from Babylonian lore. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate those thoughts. Verse 6, he's a fair guy. However, if you tell me the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts. We'll be best buddies. Rewards, you can trust me. And great honor. Therefore, tell me the dream and its interpretation. Again, I would say later on in Daniel, I know we're not there yet, but chapter 6, verse 28, Daniel does well. He does the right thing. And we're told that he's promoted in the kingdom of Darius. And he's highly exalted even through the reign of King Cyrus, the Persian. So this is a consistency that we see in the ruling of the monarchs, even though they're cross empirical, I should say, lines, that they can be pretty mean, but they can be pretty good to you also, if you find a way to help them out. All right, verse 7. They answered again and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will give its interpretation. So we have, first of all, back in verse 2, that these people are supposed to tell the king his dreams. In verse 4, the Chaldeans say, well, just tell us the dream, and we'll give you the interpretation. No, my decision is firm, and he tells them this. Verse 7, they plead with him, well, just tell us the dream. And we can tell you then the interpretation. Verse 8, the king's getting a little put out. He answered and said the third time, I know for certain that you would gain time because you see that my decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me, there is only one decree for you. For you have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me till the time has changed. And that's some more evidence right there. I think he has some experience with these guys. I think he has a suspicion that they're all a bunch of frauds. He's a smart guy. I think he's an open and fairly honest fellow. Even right now, he seems to have a pretty closed mind. And he recognizes that these guys don't know what they're doing. They're just lying about what they claim to be able to do. So he says, here's your opportunity to prove to me your worth. Therefore, tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can give its interpretation. If you can read my mind, then I know you can interpret what's in my mind. Verse 10, the Chaldeans answered the king and said, this is honesty right here. There is not a man on earth who can tell the king's matter. Therefore, no king, lord, or ruler has ever asked such things of any magician, astrologer, or Chaldean. Look, we might be the best and the brightest, but there's no one better and no one brighter. What are you going to do? Kill the whole world? Essentially is what they're asking. All right, who wants to tell us our memory verse in 11? Daniel 2:11. Roy?
It's a difficult thing that the king requests, and there is no other who can tell it to the king except the gods whose dwelling is with flesh. Or is not with flesh. So, seems like they were kind of on the right track.
I think so.
Where the answer is.
Almost like they're being brutally honest right here. So from verse 10, there is no human being who can tell you, no matter how sharp they are, what your dream was. No one can read to you your thoughts. The only ones, plural, they would see it as, who could do so, don't dwell with us. They dwell above in the heavens. Only the gods, plural, from their perspective, could reveal this to you. On the right track, though, aren't they? Maybe not 100%, but they're getting there. Verse 12, for this reason the king was angry and very furious, and gave the command to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. So here you guys claim to be the smartest, and here you claim to be able to read people's minds, to tell the future, and you can't even tell me, the king, what's on my mind. What purpose do I have left for you? Verse 13, so the decree went out, and they began killing the wise men. It already starts. And they sought Daniel and his companions, because they become a part of this royal cabinet, to kill them. Any ideas as to why they were unable to get to Daniel and friends in time to take care of them? They've already started killing the wise men. Well, there's one obvious answer, is providence, right? But also, what are Daniel and friends doing right now? Okay, they're going to be praying. Very good. Well, and they probably are praying also. Good. I'm not going to disagree with that. They're in school. Oh, okay. So, it could be by providence that they've gone through this 3-year indoctrination period where they're set aside and a little bit separated and a little more distance and a little more time. Could be helpful here on their side. They're going through charm school right now. All right, verse 14. Then with counsel and wisdom, Daniel answered Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, who had gone out to kill the wise men of Babylon. So the guy who has blood dripping from his sword, you probably want to be careful the way you talk to him, right, when he's been given a warrant for your death. Hello, sir. How are you today? So God employs him with the wisdom that he needs to direct his words wisely. Verse 15. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree from the king so urgent? He's probably smart not to say, you madman, stop this massacre. He's probably going to be next. Just ask him a question. Just out of curiosity, good sir, why is the decree from the king so urgent? Then Arioch made the decision known to Daniel. So Daniel went in and asked the king to give him time that he might tell the king the interpretation. Whoa. Now, how is this fair? Is that not exactly what Nebuchadnezzar recognized about his wise guys who had already graduated school? They were just trying to buy time. So why might he listen to Daniel and give him a little extra time compared to the others? He asked for it. Okay, the other maybe more through plotting. We're trying to find it. That's good. That's fair. What else? Yeah. The others have said, we can't do it. So this is new, right? I also ask you to go back to chapter 1 and remember the standing very early on that God has helped Daniel to gain. Okay, kind of like the character from Genesis, Joseph. Chapter 1, verse 9. Now, God had brought Daniel into the favor and goodwill of the chief of the eunuchs. And this enabled him to make his initial request of not to defile himself through the diet of the king. Look down in verse 18. Now at the end of the days, when the king had said that they should be brought in, the chief of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. The king interviewed them, and among them all none was found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore they served before the king. And in all matters of wisdom and understanding, about which the king examined them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers who were in all of his realm. I think these early days are vital for Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah's survival when the time of trial comes upon them. When they make a request of the king, who's not really well known for his generosity, God, through his providence, has arranged that the king would be open more so to their requests, I think, than others. I'm not saying that's all. I agree with the points that have been made, but I think that is a part of it here. By the way, also why it's pretty important that God tells us, see that you live peaceably, as much as lies within you, with all men. First of all, that's Jesus, right? But secondly, there can be times when that's a benefit and we get to reap what it is that we've sown. So back in our chapter of 2, Verse 17. Then Daniel went to his house and made the decision known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions. Marty? That they might seek mercies from the God of heaven concerning this secret, so that Daniel and his companions might not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then the secret was revealed to Daniel in a night vision. So a vision that happens in the night could have also been what? Huh? Okay, might have been this, same vision.
I think it was a dream, wisdom through a dream.
Yeah.
So I think he had a dream at night.
Very good. I think it's probably true. I'm on board.
Revealed to him what Nebuchadnezzar's dream was.
Yeah, what's the difference in a vision in the day and a vision at night? Ordinarily, sleep. Now, it could be that he's lying awake at night because, hey, this is a lot of stress on him and the vision comes at night. That's a possibility also. Yeah, I think there's a good chance as well, Roy, that it's actually a dream through which he would see this. Okay, so verse 19. Then the secret was revealed to Daniel in a night vision, perhaps dream. So Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. He changes the times and the seasons. This is going to be a key in Daniel. He removes kings and raises up kings. We're going to see essentially this statement made at least 2, if not 3, 4 other times in Daniel. He gives wisdom to the wise and understanding to those, or knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. I thank you and praise you, O God of my fathers. You have given me wisdom and might, and have made known to me what we have asked of you, for you have made known to us the king's domain. I find this quite impressive that Daniel, as he receives the revelation of this mystery, instead of immediately going back to the king in excitement and letting him know, okay, this is what everything, what's the first thing he recognizes he needs to do in a real time crunch here? First thing of importance is what? Adam? Okay, there you go. To give credit and gratitude where it's deserved. When we come before God with the pressing things and we need it solved just yesterday, and then it's taken care of, do we immediately stop everything we're doing, perhaps even like we see Daniel later, fall on our knees and to give glory and thanks where it's deserved before anything else? The first belongs to God, right? There's a great lesson in this for us. How much time we have? Not a lot. Okay, so I'm just going to read these to you. You're welcome to turn if you want. Make some application here as we close. 1 John chapter 5. 1 John 5, verses 13 through 15. These things I have written to you who believe in the name of the Son of God, that you may know, it's confidence, that you have eternal life and that you may continue to believe in the name of the Son of God. Among the supreme blessings of being a Christian is you know where you're going. It's not merely, well, it's where I'd like to be, or I hope so. We have hope, sure, but it's confidence. We know our standing with God. Number 1. Number 2, confidence not just in our salvation. Read on in verse 14 of 1 John 5. Now this is the confidence that we have in Him. And that's sometimes where we miss the boat. Confidence about our salvation. We say, well, I haven't been good enough. Well, and all these inadequacies, it's not confidence in us. It's confidence in Him and the promise that He's made. This is the confidence that we also have in Him, that if we ask anything, so what's excluded there? Anything, ask, prayer, according to His will, He hears us. I know He's listening to me, and I know He cares. Not because I deserve it, because He is so great, and He has promised that. And if we know that He hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have the petitions we've asked of. That's something, isn't it? We need something to transpire the right way around us. And so we stop and we say, well, I know my God will listen to me right now. I know He has saved me. I know He cares. We put it before Him and we walk away saying, God, I want your will to be done. It makes a lot of sense to me. I'm confident this is your will. Your will be done, even if I misunderstand. And we walk away saying, I believe it's already done. That's the kind of confidence that we should have in prayer. All right, just very quickly, a couple other things. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1:7. Philippians chapter 4, verse 5. The Lord is at hand. Or he's right next to you, essentially. He's your right-hand man. So, be anxious for nothing. Don't worry. Don't worry about anything going on. But in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will serve as your guard, will guard your hearts and your minds through Christ Jesus. All right, the last one I want to share with you is this. Hebrews chapter 4, verse 16. Hebrews 4:16. Marty, Daniel, and friends came before the God of heaven to seek out, we read in Daniel, a key word used is His mercies. Okay, they're confident. Okay, we're in big trouble here. We're not worried. It's all right. It's going to be fine. We know He cares. We know He hears. We're going to ask this, and we know He's going to answer our request. That's who He is. That's what He does. They come before us seeking His mercies, relief from the affliction that's about to come upon them. Look at Hebrews chapter 4, verse 16. Speaking about Jesus. Let us therefore come boldly, confidently to the throne of grace, understood through prayer, that we may obtain what? Mercy and grace. So relief from what you do deserve, and grace, blessing for what you do not deserve, in our time of what? Need. Isn't that really cool? Because we look at these stories like with Daniel, and we think, man, look at prayer and how it worked with him. And then the God of heaven uses exactly all the same terminology for us in our stressed out times when we really need Him. Makes exactly the same promises to us. We are living, breathing, walking Daniels today, if we choose to be, and if we possess the same kind of faith that he did. So, God has given the answer to his request. A, to tell him the interpretation of the dream, but let's back up and say, big A, before the little a, he has told him the dream itself. What exactly is this dream? And what is its meaning? That's for next week. We're picking up with verse, what do we get through? 23? I'm not mistaken. 4? Got through 24. Thank you. Okay. Through 24. So start in 25, read through the end of the chapter, through verse 49. Let's memorize. I know it's lengthy, but it's a good one to know. Verse 44. Daniel chapter 2, verse 44. Next week we'll be talking about the components of the king's dream and what the meanings of them are, and why this dream, bless you, has incredible relevance even to this day. It has to do with the rest of the history of the world. Okay, any other comments, though, through where we are in verse 24? Yes, sir.
I've got one that kind of how I look at it. In 2:11, our memory verse, any of this powerless teaching.
Yeah, that's terrific, Jeff. I hadn't thought about that. But that ties in so well because the viewpoint of the Babylonians of their gods, like so many, is that the gods were impersonal and out of touch with the world, no relationship with the creation. And what a contrast with the one true God and the type of relationship he wants to have with us. Wow, that's great. Thank you. Let's close there. That's perfect. Appreciate you, buddy.